Sunday morning, Father's Day, 22nd of June, 2026, a 36-year-old woman, heavily pregnant with her third child, beautiful, gracious, utterly exhausted by a year that has been, to put it gently, absolutely relentless. She picks up her phone. She opens Instagram. She looks at the two photographs she has chosen. The first one, her husband, Jack, walking hand in hand with their little boys, August and Ernest, beneath the trees on a golden summer's day. The second one, Jack, crouched in a church pew at a friend's wedding, completely focused on entertaining their son with colouring books and football stickers, entirely oblivious to the ceremony around him. She writes a caption, 5 simple words. Happy Father's Day. To the best there is. And then she posts it, puts down her phone, and carries on with her Sunday. But what wasn't in that caption? What name was deliberately, conspicuously, heartbreakingly absent sent shockwaves through the royal world within minutes? Welcome to the Royal Crown Diaries. Today we are telling you the full story behind Princess Eugenie's Father's Day post. Not just the warmth and the love it showed for one remarkable man, but the devastatingly loud silence at the heart of it. The father she celebrated and the father she did not. Let us begin with exactly what Princess Eugenie posted, because every word matters. On the morning of Sunday, the 22nd of June, 2026, Father's Day in the United Kingdom, Her Royal Highness Princess Eugenie took to her Instagram account, which has over 1.7 million followers, and shared a tribute to her husband, Jack Brooksbank. 2 images. The first, Jack, 40 years old, walking hand in hand with August, 5, and Ernest, 3, along a sun-dappled path beneath a canopy of trees. The trio are captured from behind. 3 figures, 2 small, 1 tall, the image of simple, uncomplicated family joy. The second, Jack at a wedding, crouched down in a church pew to the level of one of his sons, entirely absorbed in the task of keeping a small child entertained during a ceremony. Around the child colouring books, football stickers, little toys, Jack's entire world in that moment is that small boy. Nobody else exists. The caption, Happy Father's Day to the best there is, chief child entertainer for Vesti's wedding too. And not a single word about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Not a mention, not an emoji, not a discreet story post on the side. Nothing now. Dear friends, we need to say something important before we go any further. Princess Eugenie did not owe her father a public tribute. And she is a 36-year-old woman, heavily pregnant, navigating the most privately and publicly devastating year of her life, a year in which her father was arrested on his own birthday, released under active police investigation, stripped of his titles, evicted from his home of 22 years, and named in an expanding inquiry that could still result in serious criminal charges. She owes no one an explanation for her choices, but in the world of royal Instagram, what you post and what you do not post speaks louder than almost anything you could ever say out loud. And today, Princess Eugenie shouted her message. Through complete, devastating, beautiful silence. But before we spend too long in the shadows, let us step into the sunshine for a moment. And because Jack Brooksbank, 40 years old, is by every account, from every source, from every person who knows this family, an extraordinary father. And he deserves his moment in this story. Jack and Eugenie first met in the Swiss ski resort of Verbier. In 2010, she was 20, he was 24, and he was working at the resort at the time. Friends introduced them. It was, as Eugenie has described it, love at first sight. They dated for 7 years. Through Eugenie's time at Newcastle University, where she studied English literature and history of art, and graduated with a bachelor's degree. Through her career at auction house Paddle 8 and later the prestigious art gallery Hauser and Wirth. Through the rise of her anti-slavery campaigning, they became engaged during a holiday in Nicaragua in January 2018. They married at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle on the 12th of October 2018. And in that ceremony, Eugenie made one of the most quietly brave decisions of any royal wedding in recent memory. Her dress, designed by Peter Pilotto, was cut specifically to display the surgical scar on her back from the spinal fusion operation she had as a teenager for scoliosis. She chose to show it, to honor everyone who had supported her, to inspire every young person living with the same condition. That is Eugenie. And then they became parents. August. Philip Hawke Brooksbank, born the 9th of February 2021, named partly for his great-grandfather, Prince Philip. Ernest George Ronnie Brooksbank, born the 30th of May 2023. Named after his great-great-great-grandfather, King George V. And now, baby number 3, due this summer. Baby Brooksbank, due 2026, Eugenie posted on Instagram with the most adorable image of August and Ernest holding a picture of a scan. Buckingham Palace confirmed, His Majesty the King has been informed and is delighted with the news. So on Father's Day 2026, Eugenie looked at Jack, at the man walking hand in hand with their boys beneath the summer trees, crouching in church pews to keep them entertained, preparing to welcome a third child, and she said simply, "The best there is," and she meant every word. And now, we must address the other father, the man whose name was conspicuously absent from that Instagram caption. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, 66 years old, former prince, former Duke of York, former trade envoy, former naval officer, former everything. Currently living in quiet, humiliating, court-monitored exile at Marsh Farm on the King's Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Because here is where Andrew finds himself in June 2026. After his arrest on the 19th of February, his 66th birthday, in case anyone had forgotten that excruciating detail, he spent 11 hours in custody at Aylsham Police Station. He was released under investigation. He was moved first to Wood Farm on the estate, a modest 5-bedroom cottage, while his permanent accommodation was prepared. Just after Easter 2026, he finally moved into Marsh Farm. His titles, gone. His patronages, gone. His Royal Lodge of 22 years, gone. His ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson's Duchess title, also gone. The expanding investigation now covers alleged sexual misconduct, alleged corruption, and the latest development, a reported allegation of inappropriate behaviour at Royal Ascot in 22. He has consistently and strenuously denied all wrongdoing. But here is the detail that breaks your heart in a very specific way. Royal author Andrew Lownie, in the updated version of his bombshell book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, published in May 2026, quotes Andrew speaking privately to a member of his staff. Andrew reportedly broke down, and what he said through tears was this: "It's been very hard to deal with. The hardest thing was how it affected my family and put so much burden on them. For that, I'm sorry beyond words, and unfortunately, will have to bear that regret for the rest of my life. The hardest thing was how it affected his family. And dear friends, on Father's Day 2026, his family made their position very clear. And yet, because this story is more complicated than a simple royal Instagram snub, because here is what else we know about Eugenie and her father. Sources told Hello magazine in late 2024, before the arrest, before the worst of the scandal, that the girls take the grandchildren to visit Andrew most weekends. They are spending far more time with him now than they have done in recent years, a source confirmed. They are quite close to their father. They seem to be quite protective towards him. And the Christmas of 2025, the first Christmas after Andrew's arrest, and the stripping of his titles, Both Beatrice and Eugenie chose to attend the Sandringham walk to church with the wider royal family. A source said at the time, "It shows they're very much keeping their relationships with the wider family going strong." However they might feel privately about everything that has happened with Andrew and Sarah, their choice of Christmas venue could be viewed as public support for the king and the royal family. They walked behind King Charles and Queen Camilla. They were there. They showed up. So, in private, these daughters are still showing up for their father, visiting him on weekends at Marsh Farm, bringing the grandchildren. But on Father's Day, on Instagram, in public, silence. And that distinction is everything. It tells us that Eugenie and Beatrice are doing what millions of adult children of complicated parents do every single day, loving someone privately while protecting themselves publicly, maintaining a relationship behind closed doors, while refusing to endorse or celebrate that relationship in the court of public opinion. Because endorsing Andrew right now during an active criminal investigation that includes allegations of sexual misconduct would be impossible. Not because they don't love him, but because they also love themselves, their reputations, their children's futures, their own carefully rebuilt public identities as women of grace and dignity. And it was not only Eugenie, Princess Beatrice, 37 years old, mother of daughter Sienna and stepmom to Wolfie, also posted a Father's Day tribute on this same Sunday for her husband, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, and also for her stepfather, Sir Timothy Lawrence, who has been married to Princess Anne since 1992 and whom Beatrice has spoken warmly of in the past. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, not mentioned by either daughter, not in a story, not in a comment, not in a like. Nothing. 2 daughters, 1 Father's Day, 0 mentions of their father, and somewhere in Norfolk, at Marsh Farm, a man who told his staff that the hardest thing about everything was the burden he placed on his family, may very well have noticed. And here is the bigger picture that this story points us toward. Because Jack Brooksbank, the man Eugenie did celebrate, the man whose hands held those little boys' hands under trees at Crusade, in this moment. He represents the father that Andrew, for all his privilege, for all his palaces and titles, failed to be, not in the everyday sense. Those who know the family insist Andrew was affectionate with his daughters and genuinely loved them. But in the reputational sense, in the protective sense, in the sense of building a life that his children could stand beside proudly in public, Jack has no title. He is not in the line of succession. He is a marketing executive. He works at a golf resort in Portugal. He carries colouring books to weddings. He walks hand in hand with his boys under the summer trees. And on Father's Day 2026, he is the only father in Princess Eugenie's public world.